mindset.
Welcome to Perspectives on Healthy Living. I'm Gabrielle Antolovich, your host, and I'm with Voices United in collaboration with the Pathways Society. We have Maria Sanchez, who's written this amazing book called Girl from the Hood Gone Good. Now that sounds so complicated, I don't know where to start, except what made you want to write a book that's so personal?
Well, my whole idea behind it and the hope was to ignite and inspire others to know that there are resources out there despite their trials and tribulations and personal struggles. So I was hoping that my story will be an inspiration to them to be able to know that they can get out of emotional pain.
So what was your life like in the hood?
Well, lots of chaos. Lots of...
well, when you say chaos, what do you mean? What was going on?
For me in particular, there was a lot of domestic violence. I was involved with someone for 10 years, and we were very, very much in love, but also at the same time very dysfunctional. Came from dysfunctional families and came into the relationship with lots of baggage. And didn't have.
You mean you or the
both
other?
Of us.
Both
of us.
Yeah.
So we weren't emotionally mature or developed to know how to handle.
How young were you?
I was 15 at that time, 14, 15.
Wow,
Yeah.
And you were in a relationship already,
years.
living together?
Almost. I mean, I still have my home at my parents', but I pretty much was with him at all times.
Wow.
And my premise for being with him at all times was to keep an eye on him, because he tended to wander. And at that age, you don't want anyone wandering, at any age, right?
No.
So yeah, for me, it began with domestic violence and, you know.
Were you financially independent or?
Well, I was an only child, so I wasn't so much financially independent at 14, 15 years old. My mother and father made sure that I had all the necessities, and perhaps excessively so. Eventually, I did get more independent, but that came many, many years later.
So did your parents know that this was a domestic violence relationship?
Well, my father did not. My mother made sure to be the strong matriarch in the family, so she made sure to, you know, sorry Mom, I'm going to say this, but, you know, lie, to make sure that my father believed everything was going okay in our lives.
Yeah.
So because he had a very stressful job. He was a high school teacher. And
that's
so he was dealing with all that stuff. So she did not want to stress him out more, and she thought that she alone could handle it all. And of course, she didn't have the skills to be able to handle the out-of-control daughter who was getting involved in very adult situations.
When you say out-of-control daughter, that sounds like more than just being in a relationship with, was it with a man or
yes,
a woman?
It was
okay,
a man.
Okay. So what else was out of control about you?
I was experimenting with drugs, and by that age, I had already, I believe, was an alcoholic and well on my way to becoming
that's
addicted.
a heavy drug already.
Yeah. Legal, but
not for a 15-year-old.
No. True. That's right.
Yeah.
Easily accessible, but still young, and is just.
What else were you doing?
Drugs, heavy drugs.
Like what?
Cocaine, methamphetamine. Yeah.
Tobacco?
Weed. I didn't like weed. Tobacco for.
Yeah, that's a heavy drug.
From 6th grade to 8th grade, and then I don't know. I think I got grounded, and for 2 weeks my dad found out, and then I'm like, I gave it up. Go figure.
You got grounded for cigarettes, and you were doing methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Less detectable.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, people who like speed, you know, kind of drugs don't usually like marijuana much because it's, you know, slows you down.
Yeah, and I did not like that.
Yeah. Oh, so were you using those drugs in your parents' home or only where your...
Oh, I used those drugs anywhere. The streets, my parents' home, other people's homes, the car.
And they didn't notice?
I would have to say to that, big denial, obviously, because
Yeah.
my personality was very altered, and it was very apparent when I would switch up.
So when you were not on drugs, what were you like? And then when you were on drugs, what were you like?
I'm an extreme extrovert. I like people a lot. I like to be where all the action is. I think I was just much more animated Anna. And what started happening though was after the animated sense would be gone, then came in that sense of overwhelm and where you feel like you've been taken over by the substance, or you're altered, so altered that you can't even fake. You've lost a part of yourself. So you start not acting and it's just very uncomfortable. You become so aware that you are in an altered state due to a substance.
So did you withdraw?
Not at that age. That came later. That came in my mid-20s.
So when you were young, how were you different when you were on the substance? Like you were feeling like you lost a part of yourself, but what did the outside world see?
A fun, wild, spontaneous.
Wilder.
Yeah, wilder, yes, wilder,
Because
spontaneous.
extravates are pretty wild.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So on drugs, an extrovert, if they don't withdraw, are wilder.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. So, did your parents like that?
I wouldn't come home a lot. I would not come home. I wouldn't come home for 3, 4, 5 days, and wherever I was at, I'd shower up and get ready and head to school. And the irony was I was at a Catholic school. So.
Oh, we won't mention which one.
No.
Okay. That's not that ironic. So you were at a Catholic school, seeing this guy that was... Were you beating him up too, or was he beating you up?
I learned after a while, yes. The first year, I was shocked. I was like, well, what's going on here? But then I learned. I learned how to fight back. And I can honestly say I became the perpetrator as well. I gave it as much as I got it.
Wow. So how did all this progress? It's like girl from the hood.
How did it all progress? Well, I didn't reach out for help. I didn't know how, but also I think I didn't want to.
Did you know you needed help?
Not at that age. I think because everyone that I ran with was in similar situations. Most people. Not everybody,
So it became normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the addiction
That's a good
to the
thing
drama.
to remember.
Yeah.
Just because everyone's in the same strange, unusual situation doesn't make it normal.
No,
No.
not at all.
Okay. So, tell me, how did it progress? Did you stay in that relationship?
I stayed in that relationship for 10 years, yes. The whole while,
Until you were 25?
25. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then went into one that was even worse. But I didn't set it up that way. I thought this was my knight in shining armor. For sure this time I hit the jackpot. But it wasn't to be true.
Okay, well, first of all, how did the first one sort of fall apart?
I was going to school to get my BA in psychology, and I was going to try to understand myself.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to giggle.
I know, I laugh still myself. It's quite right.
Okay.
So I was going to school at the university.
Did you learn anything from that?
I learned a lot, but I never applied it at that time. I knew someday, I had high hopes that someday it would become a lifestyle and apply it to me. But I was so busy trying to help others and try to get my validation by helping as many people as I could and fill my self-esteem up, which was momentary.
Right.
And I realized later it had to come from within. The work had to be within.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot of work. But the rewards are
Yeah, because
amazing.
there's a long way in.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you were going to school, doing psychology, and still in that destructive relationship.
Yeah.
So how did that relationship fall apart?
I guess you could say the smarter I got or the more wiser I got, and I realized I don't deserve this, I don't want it. And simply after so many years of the same repetitive, redundant dysfunction, I fell out of love. And I couldn't do it anymore. I just fell out of love.
Did he freak out?
No, he was very sad. He
Yeah.
didn't freak out. Yeah, thankfully, he didn't freak out, but he was very sad. He was very hurt, shocked, because no one thought we would ever break up. You know, we never.
Did
thought.
you look like a pair?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We were a pair, definitely an item, but boy.
Yeah.
Some people would be like, oh, there they go, and some people would be like, oh man, here they come.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, depending on the perspective.
yes, yes.
So it fell apart, and then what happened? How did you find your knight in shining armor?
Well, it was, it was ever so easy because this person had been a friend for 8 years prior. And it was someone that I had always turned to as a good friend when I would complain about the abuse I was going through with the first one. And
so of course they knew you well.
Yeah, and I trusted and had faith and thought, well, surely he will not do to me what I just cried to him about over the last 8 years was happening to me. And it was actually, quite frankly, worse than what I could have imagined, and what the 10-year, maybe my mother to this day says, what you went through with so-and-so was worse than we could have ever imagined than what you went through in the first 10 years with.
Wow. How long did you stay with your knight in the pretend shining armor?
2 years, but the last 6 months was really ridiculous by way of being stalked to another country. Eventually it consumed both of us, but also I had to ask for legal help. I had to really, because the beatings were so severe.
Wow.
And I knew that it was going to end in my life if I did not do.
How did you stop the stalking? Because I think a lot of people would be very interested in that. Do you cover that in the book?
Yeah, well, do I cover it in such detail? Well, yes, I discuss how I went to court. I went to the DA's office and pleaded.
Well, sometimes that makes the stalking worse rather than better. So how do you stop the stalking? I mean, it's obviously stopped for you now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to write a book.
Yeah. What happened to me was I had to leave. I was kind of like couch hopping and staying at my friends where I could hide out in the peninsula.
A moving target. Yeah.
And he'd always find me. And we were broken up by then, and he'd always find me. So the situation was very grave, and I went to Guatemala to get away, and he went there as well. So I realized then, wow, I have a serious situation. He means business, and I need the law to help me. I didn't have the capacity myself to run anymore, and I got tired. I didn't want to run anymore. I lived in San Francisco. That's where I'm from, and I had the right to maintain there and to stay there. So I got angry, and then I went and got smart and got out.
Wow. So what happened to you after that resolved itself and dissolved?
I went on to get my master's in counseling psychology.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Stuck to it.
I stuck to it. Oh,
yeah.
I'm like, someday I'm going to grow up and it's going to come in handy.
Yes.
So things continued in my personal life, though, because my addictions were still a part of my escapism. So during the relationships, I didn't have time. My psyche didn't have time to deal with what was happening. I was in survival mode.
Yeah.
So once I was out of the abusive relationships, I really had to sit with myself and be like, okay, now I have issues too. I mean, there's no way I can blame just them. I attracted this. I stayed in it.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't go there.
Well, I think in these kind of relationships, so there's 50-50% of accountability to some degree.
Not always, because, I sometimes feel a bright light attracts people and that there's 70% there and the light accepting that. I have different ideas about that. Okay. So, some people are not as bright a light to attract that, so you can't blame the sun for flowers to want to grow in that direction. Plants tend to go toward the light. And some plants are poisonous. True. Very
so,
true. It's just an idea I might throw out there. But anyway, because you seem like a bright spark. You're not like the average person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what you were talking about. You started to look at what was going on.
Well, I was left to look at myself. There was no more drama. So to avoid having to look at what was murking around inside of me. And I really had to look and be like, wow, I'm a hot mess. I've got issues, and I need to address them. Just after this drink, So that continued for quite some time. that's the way I dealt with it, or didn't deal with things. And it was how I was brought up as far as the social setting. That's what you did. So I had to battle that and really realize, okay, Anna, just because you are studying psychology and you're going to become a counselor, you're not applying these tools at all to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, practice what you preach. You help others.
Well, there's a lot of people that teach meditation that, you know, don't really get in touch with anything.
Yeah.
So, you know.
That's true. But it was really for me, you know, healer, heal thyself. You know, teacher, teach thyself. So I started searching out and going to a lot of personal development workshops for me, more spiritually based.
Yeah.
Not just all heady intellectual psychology, mumbo jumbo, which had its place, but it had to be heart-based. It had to be at a deep soul level, because I was very broken. Yeah.
Wow. So what really touched you? What got through the first barrier?
What got through the first barrier? Let's see. When I started to get a sense of self-empowerment by actually applying the skills and the tools that these people, these master teachers at the workshops, the gurus I would visit, the temples I would go to, even in the churches I would sit there and on my knees in tears, I started to apply everything that I knew to my life. Not just read it and write down a note that tomorrow I'll start to meditate, tomorrow I'll pray, tomorrow I'll keep a journal.
Yeah, they're famous promises.
Yeah, but that will do nothing for you unless you take action.
Yeah, until you do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about in my book too. I give some action steps and tell people, you know, you can't wish these issues away. You have to be assertive.
5 steps to learning to love yourself in order to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny about that, isn't it?
You just can't read it and it becomes a part of you. You didn't take action.
Yeah. I bet that was a rude awakening.
Yeah, it was like, it was so obvious, it slaps you in the face, but until you can accept that that's the key to bringing it into your lifestyle. And be assertive, because no one's going to do it for you.
Have you noticed that, you know, sometimes other people's bad behavior is easier to handle than somebody loving you unconditionally?
Absolutely.
That almost hurts.
Yeah. It was very uncomfortable.
What do you think that was about?
Quite simply, I didn't have self-love. Not at all.
There was nothing to receive it.
I didn't like it. I would get actually very irritated and mad when people would give me compliments. I really did. It made me feel hot. I would go into a flustered state.
Yeah.
My brown skin, you can't tell I blush, but I do. So when someone would give me a compliment, I felt really uncomfortable. And there were times when I would feel mad. When I got really honest with myself, when I started doing more mindful-based kind of meditation and psychotherapy, where in my body was I feeling that compliment? Why couldn't I accept it?
There was nowhere.
There was nowhere. It was outside of myself, and I was angry, and I would be like, I felt like saying, how dare you? To be honest. And that just really showed me decades later how much self-hatred, how much true self-loathing there was, deep despair.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you began your road to healing, and what did you do? It sounds exciting.
Aside from the self-help books, I had accumulated a great library full of books, but I wasn't necessarily applying all the tools in them. It was overwhelming. I started seeking out shamans and spiritual teachers and pastors and going to all the people that I saw and believed that had the true walk and had the gold within them, that they had the formula, and I wanted to desperately know how to, and I needed the guidance, and I needed someone to hold me accountable. So I was a seeker, and I went to many paths and learned, and then I went to go live at Ananda community, which is a wonderful spiritual community.
Oh, yeah.
And once I was there, I was able to rest my head, and everyone there at that community.
You even eat the right food.
Yeah. I lived there for 8 years, and that was my rehab. That was
When you say rehab, did you quit doing drugs?
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
But it was my soul awakening, you know. And I didn't just quit overnight. I quit for a few months, had a relapse, start back up. And I mean, that's the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah.
In recovery. But eventually, flying right is now in demand.
Yeah. Well, you know, birds don't fly, then oops, crash, then get up again. It doesn't work that way. You got to keep flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to keep flapping.
absolutely. And there was the times that I didn't, when I got too caught up in my negative mindset that it would consume me, and it happened quickly. If I didn't practice my spiritual practices of every day waking up in gratitude, if I did not just give thanks in that moment for having another breath of another day, doing my journal writing, or give myself some self-compliments, true self-love talk, that's when I noticed I would fall, and quick. So there is a formula you must implement, a system, you know.
So did you feel that writing this book helped you personally?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you say you want to help other people, but are you one of the other people that got helped?
Because, you know, now that I read the book in its paperback style, I'm like, this is a book I would have picked up. This is a book that would have been in my library. Now it is, obviously, but when I read the words, I've read this, I don't know how many times over, and each time I read it, I'm like, I really like what I wrote. And
That's
it really helped
cool.
me. It helped me, though many times my fiance might tell you now, yeah, you should have seen her how many times she was in fetal position crying. I just can't do it anymore. I don't know what more to say. And it was, of course, the emotional triggers of having to revisit a lot of areas of my life that were difficult to live through.
So you said you have a fiance. How is this relationship different?
Much better. No beatings, no drugs. You know, he flies right. He flies right. So.
Oh, so you can flap together.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I'm kind of straying off because that's just me, a little eccentric.
Well, I mean, you know, a good relationship has togetherness and independence,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He allows me to be me, and he allows me to explore. You know, he's not quite into the spirituality as I am. You know, he's your typical hard blue-collar worker. You know, you come home, make good money, have a good meal, and enjoy your life. And I'm like, there's more, there's more, there's more.
Has he read your book?
No, he's still in shock that it even exists right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, wait till he reads it
Maybe I'll
before
read
you
it
get
to him.
married.
Yeah.
He might like it.
I told him, like, I'll use your initials, don't worry.
Yeah. So is he in the dedication?
Yes, at the very end, acknowledgements, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So how long have you been with him?
14 years. Yeah.
My, that's a long time.
Yes.
So he's probably part of the inspiration.
Absolutely. And, you know, to be quite honest, sorry, John, the first 6-7 years, he was part of the problem.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So how was that a turnaround?
When I moved out and I moved to Ananda, and I became self-empowered and said enough of my own bullshit, and enough of me taking your crap too.
Yeah.
We were both contributing to the vicious cycle.
Oh, wow. That is so great.
Yeah.
I mean, not many people feel hope that a relationship that's not working can end up working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was I demanded, quite frankly. There was no other way out. I mean, I'm like, I moved away, but just because I moved away does not mean that we're just now going to date and things will be better. No, the problems are still there. If I was doing all this work...
Let's still stay together.
Yeah.
What?
You're not demoting me from living girlfriend to dating. So it was a matter of realizing we needed help. We could not come to a healthy conclusion from the place that we both were creating the dysfunction. It wasn't working. And so we did seek out help, and it was the best thing that could have happened.
What kind of help did you get?
Counseling. Went to counseling. Yeah. It was amazing.
Your profession is very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot of people. Yeehaw. Wow. So where do you want this to go? You know, feeling that your life has finally come together.
Yeah.
You know, how does a book and you go from here?
What I would like is to create programs around the steps I have outlined in the book to help the disheartened, you know, the brokenhearted, those who feel misunderstood or who are in similar situations. It's about helping people get out of emotional pain, but they can have healthier, happier lives.
Yeah, because you know what's interesting is people often get into a relationship, they have their own emotional pain, bring it together, and it creates more emotional pain. Even if you break up, then you end up with more problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People always think there's the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
You take that the baggage that you have from this relationship, bring it into the other, and then match it up with the one that the new partner has. So it's best to work on oneself And once you do that, everything else falls into place. Not perfectly, but
Well,
things get better.
human beings are fallible.
Yeah, we'll give them that.
Yeah. I mean, that's some of the joy too, you know, the fallibility. We get to apologize and make things right. But, you know, some fallibilities go over the deep end, and some of those you can't make right.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But somehow you made it right with a partner.
Yes.
So that's great.
We worked very hard at it.
Yeah. Is that part of the book too?
Oh yeah, that reveals
making it right
making
with
it right.
what goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, you know, sometimes love overrides the situation, and so it's hard to let go of the person if you don't bring your strength into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you have two people then at that point, which was much like us and my previous relationships, more addicted to the relationship than actually getting it to a healthier state.
Yeah, or addicted to the drama and being right and the
absolutely,
battle. Yeah, that's not a relationship.
And seeking the validation from, I was so busy being desperate to seek validation from my partners when it had to come from within.
Yeah. Yeah, which is your message, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
the
light,
name of my business, yeah.
Yeah, that your light comes from within, no matter how deep you have to go to hunt it down.
Yeah, because it's there. It's
Yeah. Yeah, it's like going into the universe looking for the sun, you know, wherever it is. And let's face it, our sun for the planet is millions of miles away.
Yeah.
You know, hey. So maybe it's millions of miles within too.
Sure felt like it, but I found it. I can reside there and rest there now.
Yeah. So do you feel for a healthy relationship, both people have to, you know, bring...
Both people, I feel, need to be working on themselves and not blame the other for the other's character flaws or that they perceive the character flaws, because as you're pointing the finger to someone else, you need to point it right back at yourself and look at 3 that are pointing back at you.
Oh,
You know,
maybe there's a different way of pointing.
you know. 5 back at you. You know?
No, 5 at them.
The minute that you go out and judge someone else, you need to look back at your own stuff and say, you know, you have likely the same situation, a character. I don't like to use the word flaw, but
well,
defect?
things that bug you.
Yeah, things that can be improved. Things that can be improved on.
Exactly. Yeah. So. This sounds great, and people can go to your website and read your book.
Or on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com.
Right. Oh, wow. You're everywhere already. Well, great. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Maria Sanchez, who's written this amazing book, Girl from the Hood Gone Good, a woman's mission to help others overcome a pain-filled past that actually helped yourself. I'm Gabrielle Antolovich, your host with Voices United in collaboration with the Pathway Society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.